there was a question of the consistency of management in dealing with all the residents. And I think the fact that we have this comment up here, I think you should know that certainly there was no influence. We discussed things with your department heads, but apart from build up and facilitate, put some of the stuff together, there was no real heavy interaction with your general manager. It's our report. It bears us saying that. Again, a statement we heard was what is an amenity and what isn't causes conflict. There's a general resistance to amenity charges for other than golf and the restaurant, such as, we don't want to pay for the pool, the pool for the pool. We don't want to pay for tennis and those other amenities. And again, a comment that was given to us is that numbers are being used to drive a wedge in the community. The next couple of slides are some charts that I appreciate. It's probably a little difficult to read, and obviously I'll have a copy of the report. These bar charts, these come from the annual publication that Bob referred to earlier that we do, and this is again regarding just your type of homeowner association with the club element and the similar amenities that you have here. What we wanted to look at in terms of building up, a pricing structure is, how are other communities deriving revenue sources versus how you're deriving revenue. So when we look at Sierra industry benchmarks, you can see if you look at the bottom line, we've labeled this dues, obviously synonymous with assessments. Back in 2006, on average, the Sierras generated about 57% of their operating revenue from assessments. Again, all we're talking about here is operating revenue. This isn't reserve assessments and things like that. Our recommendation is always that you get a capital reserve study done and you fund according to the engineering estimates that come out of such a study like that. So these are operating assessments. Well, you can see, and if I can turn this into dollars for you, for every dollar of operating revenue that the Sierra received in 2006, 57.5 cents came from assessments. Okay. That number obviously has gone from 57.5 cents in 2006 to 62.5 cents. And that's pretty typical. This is just for Sierras, but we could put charts up here for clubs across the entire state and across the entire country that reflects a similar trend. A decrease in revenue generated from user fees and an increase consequently in assessments or dues or whatever we want to label it. You can see some of the other minor charges there. We haven't labeled sports and pro shop sales. There's really nothing else in there except golf in the Sierra community. So when we looked at your financial statements, and again, we just operate from what was published in terms of the audited financial statements. Obviously, there's a lot of internal management and financial information that can be populated. But ultimately, we feel when we do a study like this that if an auditor put his name on it, that's really the data that we need to use. And again, we pulled out. Obviously, you've got a little wrinkle in there with some developer funding in the last few years. That's the other thing. All the other statistics I referred to, those clubs are turned over. They're member-owned, member-run, member-managed. So when we look at your audited financial statements, again, just operations. From 2007, you relied on assessments 55.4 cents out of every operating dollar, and that's increased to 58.9 cents or almost 59 cents. Definitely when you're dealing with numbers in this size, that's significantly less than what we saw on the previous slide. The averages of 62.6, things like that. But again, you're behind the trend, but you're on that trend line. So I think that we thought that was important to push out. The other thing that points out up here, sort of that middle piece, is purple, if you can see that, regarding the golf course, and that's decreased in terms of the revenue you get from that user fees, if you will, for golf. It was 25.9 cents of every operating dollar. It's decreased to 23.2 cents. We know about the decrease in prepaid golfers. We know about those issues. And I think that's pretty well known in the community. We saw communications in that regard. In a similar vein, the revenue received from food and beverage has dipped slightly from 14.4. We got a spike in 2008, going down to 13.8. Obviously, it's wonderful to look at the facility improvements going on. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to that number when we get the facility finished pretty soon. We said we look at costs. So from a cost perspective, where does Sierra spend their money? I think we all know that obviously about 50 cents of every dollar goes to payroll, and that's our single biggest cost. It's the single biggest thing we need to control, and certainly I know it's something that your board management have been focused on. Certainly in discussions we've had with them as well. Once you get past that, some cost of sales, obviously in food and beverage, and if we have a pro shop, and then operating revenues is obviously everything else. Is pretty big bucket in there, but payroll is certainly the big focus. A lot of our Sierra clients in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, certainly we hear comments about we're running our clubs more like a business now, and a lot of that has to do with we looked hard at things we thought we could never do without in terms of cost, and we made a lot of cuts. Payroll was a big one, wage freezes, losing heads, things like that. So. You guys aren't seeing anything pretty much different from the rest of the industry. What this chart, it's a different measure. The previous chart said, okay, of your total expenses, where are you spending the money? 50 cents goes to payroll. So we flipped this another way and said, okay, well, let's look at it in terms of for every dollar that came in, where did it go? So take your expenses and divide it into your revenue. So again, not surprisingly, payroll is pretty much the same, 50 cents. We're not for profit. We're not in business to drive profits. So we should get the break even. So that would be pretty similar. Kind of hard to read, but Sierra Trends expense dollar right underneath that gives you the total 94 cents. So basically, we did have a profit in terms of the industry. For every dollar we took in, we only spent 6 cents. So maybe we used that for reserves or other things like that. But that's what the industry came up for. Every dollar we came in, we spent 94 cents. Let's look at your number. Again, we pulled this off the audited financial statements. We had to make make an estimate. And it was kind of difficult to split, given you use Valley Crest, that expense. Obviously, some of that's payroll, some of that's not. We just put it in payroll because the important thing to us overall is, again, if you look at the very top, the total, the 0.91. So you guys, for every dollar you took in, you control the cost of spending 91 cents of the dollar instead of 94 cents of the dollar, which was on the previous slide on average. So ultimately, I think that comes back to some of the comments my colleague made earlier about the financial position of the club in terms of how you could run effectively and efficiently. It pops out in that number. So. Again, some of this we've alluded to, overall financial statement, financial condition, conclusions. Clearly, you rely less on maintenance fees for operating revenue than the industry average. We have seen clearly an increased reliance on those maintenance fees for the same reasons that the industry is seeing that over the last 3 years. But your major expense items as a percentage of operating revenue, you're in line with industry averages and certainly slightly ahead when we look at the pie overall. And again, we make the comment, we didn't look at your capital reserve charges. That's a professional study required by engineers that you guys haven't looked at. And again, your charges in that respect, we feel should be consistent with any study of that nature, and it should be updated regularly.
I'm going to take you through food and beverage. Over the years, and I know you can't read this, but there's 18 items up there. We are from time to time asked by our clients why food and beverage operations don't make money. Well, again,